And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 82nd episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday evening, April 2nd, 2019, where I am your host, Matthew Lukens. If you want to know where you can catch us live, you can catch our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page or our website. If you miss the live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts so that you can listen on your own time. The script just went away from me. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ. Subscribe and turn the bell on for notifications. All the information is on our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. On the docket tonight, as we start the offseason of basketball, sad face, sad emoji. Our first topic of the discussion in the offseason is everything Romeo Langford. This sounds familiar, right? I feel like we started this last offseason the same way. Should Romeo stay or go? Is the team better with or without him next year? What is his draft stock if he goes? All those questions and more will be answered in the next, hopefully, 45 minutes, probably an hour, because that's how long our podcasts go, but we'll see. All right, so the first question we're starting with is the obvious one. You know, the whole, is the team going to be better with or without Romeo, is totally negated if he leaves. So will Romeo stay or go? So let's start out with both sides for Romeo staying and leaving. We here at Indiana HQ and the Hoosier Sound, and basically any properly informed IU fan probably think that it's like a 99% chance that he's leaving. So here with me tonight is Nithin Krishnan, your boy. How are you doing tonight, Nithin? And what are your opening thoughts on the future of Romeo Langford and the Indiana Hoosiers?
Yeah. Hey, Matt. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening again on this fantastic Tuesday evening. Shout out to Noah. He couldn't be here tonight. Hopefully he's back next week.
Yes.
As far as Romeo Langford is concerned, it's interesting, right? I mean, as you mentioned, it's pretty obvious that Romeo is probably going to go to the NBA. And he doesn't even have to decide until a few weeks from now. I believe April 21st is the deadline by which these NBA draft the early entries have to at least throw their head. No one knows what's going on inside his head. There are pros, there are cons. I think everyone is unsure about what's going to end up happening. We'll see how Romeo feels. He does to be a lottery pick. If you look at the sources around the web, various publications, Romeo is supposed to be a lottery pick. Now, is that a big deal for Langford? I don't know. Is Romeo content with being a top 15? There are lots of factors in play. There are a lot of variables in play. And I, for one, am really curious to see how it plays out. Again, I'm expecting to go, but there are lots of variables in play.
Absolutely. There's a lot of variables in play. I mean, I liked your point about the draft stock because it's all over the place, right? Like it's crazy. I mean, one draft board has him at pick 8, and another draft board has him at pick like 25. So, I mean, he's not getting really good information yet. I assume that he will declare for the draft, even without an agent, at least, just to go get, some more information from teams and, see what teams are interested in and might want to pick them or are looking for a shooting guard and are in a market for somebody who's a grade A slasher and is a decent defender. So, I mean, I assume he's going to declare for the draft. Now, whether he stays in the draft, who knows? I believe that, again, just like Nithin does, that he'll stay in the draft, but he could stay. And I'll take the position that he could stay, which is that if you look at other players like Miles Bridges, you look at players like Rui Hachimura, you look at players like Ja Morant, players that stay 1 year and have a very good freshman year, but then blossom as a second-year player because they get better at shooting, they feel more comfortable on the court, they have a better team surrounding them. That would be the reason why Romeo would stay. I think he could boost his draft stock, especially next year. Not very guard heavy. The top of the class for next year's class, the two top guards, Anthony Edwards and Cole Anthony, are two by far the way the best prospects in that class. But then you go down the list and you're kind of like, nah, there's no like Kobe White, right, who comes out of nowhere. There's no Ja Morant as of now. So Romeo definitely could get into the top 10, maybe even a top 5 pick next year if he stays. So if I were giving him advice, I would say go to the draft without an agent first. Find out what your options are. If you find out your options aren't exactly what you want them to be, come back for a second year and prove everybody wrong. There's no reason why you should go as a 16th overall pick when you can get a lot more money over time if you wait a year and go as a top 5 pick that you could probably make it. You have the talent to be a top 5 pick. But will he do that? Who knows? I wouldn't blame him if he goes and gets his money. It's his dream to play in the NBA, as all basketball players' dream to play in the NBA. And why would you be passing up that opportunity to go and play with, a really good team? And if you're picked in the 12 to 16 range, you're not on a terrible team, right? You're most likely on a team that's kind of rebuilding but getting close to the playoffs. And who knows? He might end up on the Lakers with his best buddy LeBron. So who knows?
And that's a really good point you made there, Matt, because for some guys, that's more attractive than being the number 1 overall pick.
Correct, yes.
The difference between the number 1 pick and the number 12 pick, as far as money goes, in your rookie contract for year 1 is only $3 million. For the first overall pick next year, probably Zion Williamson.
No, not
we'll
probably.
Be making somewhere around
be Zion. Yes, but yes, Zion. Oh, I think we lost Nithin. Oh boy. Well, anyways, I think he was talking about Zion's draft stock. You back?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
God.
Yeah.
All right.
You were gone, sir.
we had some technical difficulties.
We are having a couple of technical difficulties. You can't tell, guys.
Yeah, I think it's the nice weather outside. It's causing some problems here.
I mean, hey.
So
there's worse reasons to have internet problems.
As far as Zion goes, though, my point is the first overall pick next year will make about $6 million.
Yeah.
If Romeo Langford goes 12th, he's still going to make about $2.5 million next year.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're talking about, look, for some people that's a big difference. For others, they'll say, hey, maybe I'll sacrifice some money as long as that means I get to play on a good team. And look, you look at those teams in that 12 to 16 range. You got the Lakers, like you mentioned with LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
The Celtics have a pick in that area next year because they get Sacramento's draft pick. The Celtics are as playoff ready as any team in that area. Orlando had a good season. Miami, Brooklyn, these are all interesting teams in active cities where Romeo might be interested in going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some very good franchises on there as well. You didn't mention that are really good at developing players. Other than Boston, Miami's in there, and Brooklyn's in there, and San Antonio's in there. All of those franchises have done very well at developing players. So I wouldn't blame Romeo if he thinks, well, the Heat might take me, even though they have about 400 million shooting guards on their roster. That, hey, maybe it would be good to go there because the Heat are known for developing stars and known for developing players. Same thing with San Antonio. You know, Pop's an Indiana guy who probably would want to draft Romeo. Play with DeRozan and get to back up DeRozan and get to learn from somebody who we've even compared him to. So that would be really interesting. But yeah, I mean, we'll move on from Romeo for a second. We did the whole he could stay, he could go. We're going to take a break from Romeo because that's the whole episode we're going to talk about him. We'll get back to him, I promise. There's a whole thing about the 2019-2020 team coming up in a second. But first, Nithin, who won the week from IU Sports in this past week?
Wow. I mean, there are lots of options to choose from this week. I think you got to start with the men's swimming and diving team. We talked about the women last week on our show. This week, the men did a great job at the national competition. They finished third, a remarkable performance. It's the second consecutive year where they have finished.
I think he's saying something about
really hang their hats on that. How about IU? And yeah. All right. No worries. So, between the IU men's swimming and diving team dominating the national competition, getting another top 3 finish, as well as Calbert Chaney getting inducted into the Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame. Those are 2 remarkable achievements. I'm also going to throw in IU's baseball team, who this week took 2 out of 3 in a Big Ten matchup against Maryland on the road. And they did a really good job over the weekend. They won their 3rd consecutive Big Ten Player of the Week award. Yep. This week it was Matt Lloyd. Last week it was Grant Richardson. The week before it was Ryan Feynman. So IU baseball's playing better as well. They've got 8 home games coming up between now and April 16th. So keep an eye out for that. If you're around the area, definitely take in some IU baseball.
Absolutely. They have the second most home runs, or the most home runs in Division I baseball as a team. So they have that going for them. You go out and sit in the outfield or stand in the fields in the outfield at the baseball game. Hopefully you get a home run ball or 2. All right, so we're going to move on back to Romeo. We're going to go with the 2019-2020 season. So what do you think is his position with the team? What do you think his position is if he's on the team? So think of the lineups. For me, I think he'll probably be the 3rd guard. I think we'll probably play 3 guards, and then if Justin Smith stays, Justin Smith and Trace Jackson Davis. So they'll probably be Finney, Devontae, Romeo, Justin Smith, Trace Jackson Davis. What do you think, Nithin?
First of all, it would break IU's campus if Romeo Langford did actually decide to come back for next year. I think people would be really galvanized and energized by having an in-state kid come back to play at IU, because clearly if he returns, he feels like he wants to sort of improve overall how his time at IU is going. As far as his fit on the team next year, I'm really interested to see how it works sort of hand in hand with Robert Finney and
Yep.
Those 2 guys in the back, Jerome Hunter. I'm looking at Romeo as the guy who's going to dominate as sort of that wing player. I'm not sure who the exact comparison is, but when you're talking about a guy who can get the ball on the wing, drive to the rim, draw fouls, hit the mid-range shots, improve his 3-point shooting, and then do the same thing on the defensive side as well, that's very encouraging. That's how I see him fitting on this team. Because look, if Romeo does leave, you're losing about 30 points per game off your roster with Jawan Morgan graduating and Romeo moving to the NBA. So if you're getting an automatic 16, 17 point per game guy like Romeo Langford was last year, if you're somehow getting him back on your team for next season, that's going to be a real shot in the arm for IU.
Absolutely. It will definitely give people around here something to look forward to next year, even though Trace Jackson Davis is great. And there's many things online who talked about him after the McDonald's All-American game. You should go check those out. I think Rivals had a good article about him. So, yeah, I think we both agree that he'd probably be the third guard. And then whoever's the forward spots, we don't know. Maybe even a grad transfer comes in. We have no idea as of now what is going on, which is kind of exciting and absolutely nerve-wracking at the same time. So if he leaves, I think in the NBA, he's obviously a two guard. He's off the ball playmaker, I think. I mean, he could probably play a little bit of the one. You saw a lot of his great play with Juwan Morgan came in the pick and roll with Juwan, and it's a very pick and roll heavy league in the NBA. And he's obviously shown that he can run that very well. I think if a team is willing to develop him a little bit, he could probably play like as a secondary playmaker on the floor. But most likely he plays a lot more like a DeMar DeRozan, a typical shooting guard, coming off of screens, trying to slash to the basket, get lobs and nice cuts. And that's where I see Romeo. How about you, Nithin?
Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it, Matt. And I think, more and more recently, what I've seen in the NBA is that fit matters almost as much as anything.
Yes.
If he goes to the Lakers, that's going to be a completely different situation than if he goes to, say, a team like Washington, which is going to be completely different than if he goes to Charlotte, especially if Kemba Walker leaves in free agency from the Hornets. So there are so many moving parts to this. It's not so much you're drafting a physical profile or you're drafting a position. All these teams, whether they're in the lottery or they're coming off a playoff run this summer, they're going to be looking at how a first-round pick can help fit in with their team, what they already have in place. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But Matt, one thing I remember we discussed last week was how you said Romeo Langford has some very clear-cut things that he can improve upon. Yes. Do you think that sort of finite list helps his decision one way or the other?
Absolutely. I think if he had a lot more things to work on, I feel like he would come back, right? If let's say he had trouble with ball handling and trouble with not only shooting threes, but maybe shooting free throws. But his free throws were fine by the end of the year. His mid-range shots were good. He's one of the best finishers around the rim in college basketball. His defense was pretty good for having learned and been in the system for 1 year. So that's not even a problem either. And when he was forced to play one-on-one defending, he could hold his own. Some people have talked about his hustle or whatnot, but I think he hustled. It's just he doesn't show emotion. So he's not like, he's not dramatic while he does it. So if he had anything to work on, if he had a lot of more things to work on, I feel like he would stay. But because he has finite things to work on, I think that helps his draft stock actually with NBA teams go, this is what he needs to work on. It's very obvious what you need to work on. And if you're working on it every day with professional coaches, it's pretty easy to fix one or two things than it is to fix your whole game as a whole. So
now the one weakness that stands out to me, though, is his 27% shooting from beyond the arc, which is where he ended after 1 year of playing at IU. Obviously, the college three-point line is closer than the NBA three-point line is. Is that something where Romeo says, hey, look, I know if I come back and I improve that to 34, 35%, I've got a much better shot at going in the top 3 next year than if I go right now?
Yeah. I mean, that is like I said earlier, that isn't the case for him coming back a second year and getting more money that second year, but you are losing a year of being able to make money. And that's why I said he should absolutely go to the draft. He's going to go to the draft process, but he probably should go without hiring an agent just to have that safety net to come back, to make sure that, hey, if a team wants me and they're going to pick me, 10th, or just, the teams that are at picking 10th, 12th, 13th, and 16 all want me, then I know I'm going to get picked at least one of those 4 picks, right? So I should definitely look for that. But I mean, it's really all up in the air right now. It's a lot of speculation that we're doing, but I mean, it's a lot of fun speculation, right? Because
that's what makes it. That's what makes it fun and interesting.
Fun and interesting, and this is not like we're telling Romeo what to do. I'm obviously not an NBA draft scout. If I was, I'm not sure I'd be on this podcast. But I have an actual job. I'm looking for a job. If you want to hire me, that's great. But
well, one thing I did want to say though, Matt, was there are a couple of wrinkles this year in the draft process. So you had mentioned a couple times, Romeo Langford should enter the draft without an agent, and that's how things have been for the last couple of years. And Romeo can do that again this year. Can do that this year if he chooses to do so. But what's interesting is starting this summer, this coming draft season, you can actually declare for the NBA draft and hire an agent. And that doesn't immediately disbar you from playing college basketball in the future. The NCAA basically decided after a lot of that fallout after the Louisville scandal from a few months ago, that agents can help players out, but it doesn't necessarily have to be black and white. So, for example, Romeo Langford could say, hey, I'm hiring an agent, and the agent can help him throughout the scouting process. But if for whatever reason, before the final deadline, which comes late in May, if for whatever reason Romeo Langford says, I want to go back to college for another year, he has to immediately terminate the relationship with that agent until he goes into the NBA next summer or whenever that is. So that's one difference this year compared to previous. Also, something else. If an early entrant into the NBA draft, that is someone who's not a senior, if an early entrant into the NBA draft goes through the scouting process, goes through the NBA draft, which is in June, I think June 20th or June 21st is the official date, and that person goes undrafted, that player can actually choose to come back to college to continue playing for his college team as long as he notifies the athletics department within a week or so of the draft. So that's a really interesting curveball to this entire thing, because that's going to mess with scholarship numbers. That's going to mess with who's coming in and who's going out. Because on June 21st, if a certain underclassman goes undrafted and he says, whoa, I wasn't expecting this, that player can go back to whatever school he played at last year and play. And the school almost is obliged to put him back onto the roster. So that's where the NCAA is kind of helping out the student athletes a little bit. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out in the coming months.
I am excited to see how that also comes. What the heck am I saying? Also, see how that unfolds. Okay, so moving on. I just lost the script, but I'm pretty sure it was talking about his draft. Yes. All right. Romeo's draft stock. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. But we talked about where he was on draft boards, but Nithin, if you want to, talk about that again, maybe just, dust that off a little bit.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Just to be as clear as possible. The clearest thing I can say is that there's no clarity whatsoever about Romeo Langford's current position. Almost everyone is unanimously saying that Zion Williamson's going to be number 1. John Morant and RJ Barrett are going to be 2 and 3 or 3 and 2. Jarrett Culver and Cam Reddish will probably follow in some order. But when Romeo Langford is discussed around the NBA draft, his name goes as high as 6th or 7th or 8th, and it goes as low as 20th. And these aren't just fans' opinions. These are publications like Sports Illustrated and ESPN that they're all over the place on Langford. Some people say his strengths are he can create his own shot. That's an extremely desirable quality. Others say he can't shoot threes. In the NBA nowadays, why are you drafting somebody in the first round who can only shoot 27% from 3 in college as long as he's not a big man? So his range right now is something like 8th all the way to 20th. And all you have to do really is just, Twitter search Romeo Langford NBA to see all the different opinions from verified accounts from legitimate NBA scouts. They're all over the place on this guy. And again, this creates a really interesting scenario where Romeo next year could either be the number one option on a bad team or a really important complementary piece on a playoff team, which is kind of the difference between, say, what Victor Oladipo went through when he was immediately drafted compared to what OG Anunoby had to deal with, right? OG went into Toronto. He was a complimentary piece. They didn't put too much pressure on his shoulders, and he helped Toronto advance in the NBA playoffs as soon as he came into the NBA. So when you look at where he's going to land, we're talking about a really wide range. And I don't know, maybe that's something that scares Romeo Langford away from going into the NBA, and maybe it has him come back to IU.
Maybe. But I'll talk about a little bit about which teams would be interested in him.
Sure.
Teams that are looking for a 2-guard. So most notably, teams like the Hawks would be interested in him. I don't think he'll go as high as 5th and 6th in the draft. But a team that already has an established point guard, Trae Young, they'll probably be looking for a 2-guard. Of course, they'll probably be looking for somebody who shoots the ball a little bit better than Romeo does, but either that can be developed. Trying to see who else would like one. Probably Memphis is probably in the market for a shooting guard. They're in a total rebuild, so I wouldn't be surprised they'd take anybody at this point. The Pelicans probably looking for a shooting guard as well. They have Drew Holiday, who's a decent point guard, but other than that, they don't have many good shooting guards. The Lakers are not looking for a shooting guard, so I would not be surprised if he doesn't go there. Minnesota is probably in the market for a shooting guard. I feel like this is about the time that they're going to try to work their way away from his name is...
You thinking about Andrew Wiggins?
Yes, I am. Yes, they're trying to get rid of Andrew Wiggins, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to say some other name.
Well, and remember,
I want to say Justin Jackson, but that's not. That's Andrew Wiggins. Yes.
Yes. And remember, they also got rid of Jimmy Butler too. So
yeah. So they'd probably be in the market for a 2-guard, and that wouldn't be a terrible place for Romeo to go. Especially as I highlighted earlier, his pick and roll ability with somebody like Karl Anthony Towns would make him look a lot better. Charlotte probably is in the market for a shooting guard. I don't know if that's the best place for Romeo to go, just because I see it as a tough place to play, especially with them losing Kemba Walker, and he'll be in a lot more of like an Oladipo situation, and I feel like if he's in a complementary role, he'll be better off. Miami's probably not in the market for them. Boston's probably looking for anybody who they can develop, so Romeo could go to Boston. I don't think it's very likely, but they could. Orlando probably not. Detroit, I think in this mock draft they have him going to Detroit. I think Detroit would be a great landing spot for Romeo. Not only because it's close to home, because it's in Michigan, but being able to play with Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, and being able to play with a star, and getting developed under somebody who's been through the process before. As a heralded high school recruit to then a high draft pick in Blake Griffin, that would probably be really good for Romeo. And then going down the list, I think the last one I probably will talk about is San Antonio, who again in this draft they have them drafting Bol, which would be interesting to see Bol on a roster with Greg Popovich. But the only reason I say San Antonio is because I just selfishly want to see Greg Popovich develop Romeo into a very good player. So that's about it.
Hey, right now the Pacers have the 20th selection in the NBA draft based on current records. Yeah. How crazy would it be if Romeo ended up joining Victor Oladipo on the Pacers next year?
That would be insane. But then again, I think the Pacers wouldn't do that just because they're actually probably going to look for somebody who's more of like a forward. They definitely need some help at the small forward or power forward positions, just depth wise. So I think they're pretty set on guards. They just drafted Holiday last year in the draft. So and he's worked out pretty decently for Indiana. So I'd be surprised to see them draft. But yes, I would love to see Romeo and Oladipo play together. That would be amazing. But I don't see that happening. But yeah, you got any last thoughts on that?
I mean, look, right now we're all expecting Romeo to go to the NBA. I think that's where it all comes back to. But for whatever reason, if he chooses to return, I think this IU team all of a sudden gets kind of that energy back going into next year. All of a sudden, you're looking at a team that has a freshman like Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis joining. You talk about Devontae Green and Deron Davis returning for their senior year. And then if Romeo joins that crew, it's going to be pretty exciting in Bloomington next year, especially considering the improvements that we would probably look forward to seeing from Romeo year 1 to year 2. If he does go to the NBA, I have no idea how it's going to turn out for him. I don't know if he'll end up being an all-star. I don't know if he's going to end up coming off the bench for the rest of his career. I have no clue. And, we're probably going to find out as soon as this coming October when the season starts.
Yes, we will. All right, so we're going to move on to questions. This first one's for you, Nithin. What is your reaction to the Copo Bianco post?
Yeah, so I believe this question was from our
Mike.
One of our good friend Mike asked that one. As far as this post that he's referring to, so there was some Twitter drama or some social media drama over the weekend when it seemed like there was a post from former IU basketball player Bobby Capabianco, and it had some really strange, bizarre accusations and rumors. Now, it seems like it's fake. It's not like IU has addressed it or anything. It seems like complete social media garbage. But this person who claims to be Capabianco said that there was some real locker room strife going on during the season. It mentioned the physical altercation. It talked about how a number of players are almost likely transferring. This to me seems completely out of left field, completely fake. I don't know if this person just used Capabianco's name to get attention. I don't know if Capabianco wants to be, get attention because he hasn't, he played for IU back in the early part of this decade. It seemed very bizarre, very strange. I don't know if someone's just trying to stoke the fire a little bit with IU basketball. It's just a friendly reminder that don't believe everything you see on social media. Just wait for the official reporters to break news if anything happens. Because if you dig too much into Facebook and the Twitter, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Yep. I think I talked a little bit of something about that on Twitter. I just, even if it's real, I don't think that nonsense should be posted, because they're kids. Anyways, moving on. Mike had a second question, which was entertainment question. What is the percentage chance that Kyle Guy transfers to IU? Oh boy. He could go to the NBA or stay with Virginia. What if Tony Bennett goes to UCLA? The rest of Virginia's good players are graduating and are going to NBA draft. We know Kyle has always been an IU fan. Grandparents had season tickets, etc. But he did not click in quotation marks, with Tom Crean. Now that there's a new regime, has that changed? I think the chance that he transfers here is 0%. Because I think he'll stay with, Virginia, even if Tony Bennett leaves. I don't see why he would transfer as a junior and then have to sit out a year when he could just go to the NBA. Because the NBA will take him probably as a second-round pick. No, he's not coming to IU. Nithin,
I'm sure he might be able to use that graduate transfer route. I'm not sure what all the ins and outs of that rule are because he has played 3 years. But again, like you said, Matt, and even the question said, this is just for entertainment purposes. No, I would be absolutely floored if that kind of thing happened. But I'll tell you one thing though, Matt, Kyle Guy and Virginia played one heck of a game against Purdue over the weekend. The entire Elite Eight was just amazing to watch.
I think Kyle Guy made every IU fan proud, and I think it's Tom Crean's last masterstroke that he played 4D chess to get Kyle Guy to go to Virginia to then beat them in the Elite Eight to make sure that they don't go to the Final Four. So thank you, Tom Crean. Thank you, Kyle Guy. You heard it here first, folks. Anyways, question from Rob: does the AAF, the American Athletic?
I think it's the Alliance. I think it's the Alliance for American Football.
Yeah, for American football. Yeah. That secondary NFL still exists next season. Does it have implications on IU football, Nithin?
So this is the league that kind of surprisingly, I know there were some murmurs a week or two ago, but this is kind of the minor league AAA football league that started right after the Super Bowl in early February, and out of nowhere, it suspended its operations today. This was a league where former IU football player Chase Dutra was involved a little bit. He was trying to get some repetitions to show for potential NFL coaches. All of a sudden, this league suspended its operations earlier today. And this 8-team league that served kind of as a AAA league, its future is very much in doubt. I guess to answer the first part of that question, do I think it's going to continue next year and going forward? It seems like it seems very ominous. It seems unlikely. Usually leagues don't suspend their operations and all of a sudden get resuscitated and go on to be great for the next few decades. But hey, look, the XFL is coming up. I'm not too excited about that, but I've seen the stories. It's coming up. I don't know, Matt. Maybe I know you're a football fan. I mean, it seems to me that there is some potential for a minor professional football league, but it seems like every league that tries doesn't work out. What do you think?
Yeah, because I think the minor leagues is college football, and that pretty much has a grip on society. So I'd be surprised. I think the XFL, if they do it right, could have kind of like a grungy kind of in your face take on football. For like wrestling fans, the people there's a facet of society that loves professional wrestling, and if there's people that love professional wrestling, there's going to be people that love fake football. There's a lingerie football league somewhere, right? Like that is a thing. There's people that will watch this. I'm assuming that there will be another minor league football association or league at some point. And at some point, one will get traction. I thought this one came out of nowhere, and then it had a great opening night with the quarterback getting his face blown off. And then, I didn't watch another game since. So, I just don't think it was very well marketed. It came out of nowhere, and it had a jump start, but it obviously died off.
Right.
And for as far as it goes for its implications on IU football, I think it's great that more of our players would have been able to go on and have professional careers. But let's be honest, if the professional association isn't going to exist in less than 6 months, I don't think it's great for former IU football players. I think they should go focus on, their career other than sports, the NCAA likes to put it. Every player wants to continue to play professionally, obviously, but if the league's not going to exist, then it's not good financially or just in general for them. And so that's going to be about it. Got anything else left to talk about, Nithin? Oh, you want to talk about NCAA tournament results?
Yeah, we could.
Could you talk?
I'd love to.
The best Elite Eight I can remember, because every game was freaking fantastic. So you want to kick it off a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just saw that Wichita State, who beat IU last Tuesday, they lost in the NIT semis to Lipscomb. So their season is over.
Wait, you're telling me what's his face for Wichita State did have like 30 points in this game and was
McDuffie?
Yeah, McDuffie. God.
Yeah, that guy. But no, you were right, Matt. The Elite Eight was just unbelievable. I found myself gripped to almost every second. You know, it started with Gonzaga, Texas Tech. Those two teams went down to the wire, and I was content. I was like, sweet, we got a good game between a couple of great teams. I'm satisfied. And then it came, right after that came Virginia, Purdue, which is one for the ages. And then you went to bed, woke up, had some food, and then Auburn, Kentucky. I mean, who would have expected the Wildcats to lose that game to an Auburn team that lost their best player on Friday night, Chuma Okeke?
I lost to them twice this year. They lost to the Kentucky twice this year previously.
I know, and I mean, Kentucky was healthy with P.J. Washington back, and they came out like gangbusters to start that game. They went up like 8 or 10 or 12 points to start, but then Bruce Pearl, you can have whatever opinion you want about his off-the-court activities, but on the court, he deserves a ton of credit for having Auburn ready to go.
Yep.
And not just ready to go, but to actually win the game, because that's what they're out there to do. And then, of course, we kind of buried the lead here, but it ended with Michigan State and Duke playing an absolute epic. Not exactly a 100-95 game it was, but, you had NBA guys going up and down the floor. I thought it was hilarious that Duke, a team that got lucky with the way those games against UCF and Virginia Tech ended on missed layups, I thought it was pretty funny that the game ended with RJ Barrett making a free throw that kind of hurt their chances to win.
Yep. I mean, yeah, as you talk about, every game is good. Bruce Pearl's reactions, if you haven't seen them, were wonderful, like they always are during the Kentucky game. You saw after that game, Coach Cal got a lifetime contract with Kentucky, so he will be Kentucky head coach for the foreseeable future. That Virginia buzzer beater was pretty awesome. Of course, I'm in an honorary band fraternity, and we had our district convention this weekend, and it was up in Indianapolis. It was hosted by Purdue, so a bunch of our brothers went up there, and they were, avidly rooting against Purdue in a Purdue bar, and then Purdue lost. And I got a bunch of very good Snapchats from that. But I remember I was watching every game on my phone because I was sitting here playing Apex Legends on my PlayStation. And I'm watching every game on my phone, and I'm like a minute behind, and everybody, like, whenever something big would happen, would just spam Slack or like text me. I'd get like 30 text messages like, "Did you see that shot?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a minute behind." I don't even know he missed the break. Like, I don't know.
Oh man, no, the ending to that Virginia Purdue game was just absolutely insane,
unbelievable.
All right, real quick, who do you have winning it all? Because it's gonna be over by the time we come back next week.
That's right. All right, this weekend. Yeah. I've got. You know what? I'm rooting for the Big Ten. I got Michigan State winning it. If they don't win it, I think it's the winner of the Michigan State-Texas Tech game.
Who's MSU going to beat?
They got to beat Texas Tech, and then they got to beat, I'm going to say the winner of – I'm going to say Virginia. They're going to have to beat Virginia.
All right. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think Virginia is going to beat Michigan State.
And the Big Ten needs to win a title at some point. How many times has Michigan been to the final game and lost? Was it 3 times now?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I don't know how much this goes into it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Jeez.
I don't know how much this goes into it, but the thing's going to be in Minneapolis, so I got to figure Michigan State will have the crowd advantage, but I don't know how many tickets they sold months and months and months ago. So
I mean, hey, there's a good contingent of Virginia fans at the Louisville, at the game in Louisville, and I mean, Louisville's right across the street from Indiana. So, but yeah, I don't know. I do think it's the Spartans. You think it's the Cavaliers. So we'll see, but I mean, hey, maybe we'll look like geniuses and get that right. Anyways, that's gonna about wraps it up for our 80-second show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us and putting up with me saying, and that's about it. We really appreciate your support. Noah will be back this Friday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. Big thanks to our live audience for coming out and participating in the chat. Yes, I see you guys. Make sure you stay tuned through updates on Twitter. Visit our website, indianhq.com, and subscribe so you can get these episodes right to your phone. Send us your questions as the audience on what questions you have, and we'll answer them on our next episode. Most importantly, if you love our show, leave us a review on iTunes or Facebook. Tell a friend, share our links. Your support is how we grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time. Peace.